The observation deck of the Galactic Coalition's training facility hummed with the nervous energy of a dozen species, all waiting to witness what the veteran instructors called an impossibility. Commander Vrel, a Thaxian with crystalline exoskeleton that refracted the station's artificial light, stood with his forearms crossed, watching the human through the reinforced viewport. Sergeant Lyra Dax stood alone in the training arena, her standard-issue gray uniform somehow looking casual despite the tension in the room. She was checking her wrist display, seemingly unbothered by the fact that she was about to enter a corridor occupied by 6 Krath cubs, apex predators whose homeworld boasted gravity 3 times that of Earth, whose claws could shred duraplast and whose instincts were honed by millions of years of evolutionary dominance. "This is madness," Vrel muttered, his translator converting his crystalline resonance into standard. "The cubs are in their challenge phase. They won't move for anyone. It's biologically impossible." His assistant, a floating quell named Shimmer, pulsed an anxious purple. The human requested this test specifically. She said it was necessary for diplomatic protocols. Vrel's optical clusters focused sharply. "Diplomatic protocols? We're training soldiers, not ambassadors." Below, Sergeant Dax stepped into the corridor. It was a standard passage 30 meters long, leading to the supply depot on the other side. But today it was occupied. 6 Krath cubs lounged in a loose formation across the passage. Each was roughly the size of an earth lion, their obsidian scales gleaming under the corridor lights, dorsal ridges raised in the territorial display typical of juveniles. The largest, Corin, lay directly in the center, his amber eyes tracking Dax's approach with the calculating intelligence that made the Krath such formidable warriors. The cubs were in their challenge phase, a biological imperative that made them immovable. To step aside was to show weakness, to break the evolutionary programming that would one day make them pack leaders. Every species in the Coalition knew this. You simply didn't challenge Krath cubs. You waited or you found another route. Dax walked forward at a steady pace, her boots making soft sounds against the metal floor. 20 meters, 15. The cubs' attention sharpened. Their muscles tensed beneath their scales, claws extending slightly. In the observation deck, Vrel leaned forward ready to call for intervention. 10 meters, Dax stopped. She stood there for a moment, hands relaxed at her sides, her posture neither aggressive nor submissive. Then she did something that made every observer freeze. She smiled, not a threatening display of teeth. Not a dominance gesture, a simple, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Pardon me," she said softly, her voice carrying clearly through the corridor. The words were in standard, but her tone transcended language, polite, patient, respectful. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The cubs stared at the strange, soft-skinned creature, who had stopped when she should have challenged or retreated, who had smiled when she should have postured, who had asked permission when she should have demanded passage. Then Corin rose. Slowly, deliberately, the alpha cub stood and moved to the side of the corridor. His eyes never left Dax. But there was something new in that gaze, not fear, not even submission, but something the observers couldn't quite name. One by one, like a synchronized military unit, the other 5 cubs followed. They arranged themselves along both sides of the corridor, creating a perfect passage down the center. Their posture was alert, almost formal. Sergeant Dax nodded once, a small gesture of acknowledgement, and walked through. As she passed each cub, she maintained eye contact for precisely 1 second, not long enough to challenge, but long enough to acknowledge. When she reached Corin, she paused. "Thank you," she said quietly. The cub's dorsal ridges lowered slightly, the Krath equivalent of a respectful incline. Dax continued through the corridor, collected her supplies from the depot, and returned the same way. The cubs were still there, still in formation. They watched her pass again in complete silence. When she reached the end of the corridor and turned the corner, they slowly returned to their original positions, settling down as if nothing extraordinary had happened. In the observation deck, the silence was absolute. Vrel's translator emitted a sound like shattering glass, his species' expression of profound confusion. "Ow," he finally managed. Shimmer pulsed through several colors before settling on a thoughtful amber. She didn't challenge them, obviously not. But they should have— "No!" A deep voice rumbled from the back of the observation deck. Commander Thrak, a full-grown Krath warrior and the Cubs' training supervisor, stepped forward. His massive form cast shadows across the room. You misunderstand. She did challenge them. Pharrell's optical clusters swiveled toward him. Explain. Thrak's dorsal ridges rippled, the Krath version of a contemplative expression. Among my people, the challenge phase tests not just strength, but judgment. The cubs were waiting to see what she would do. Would she attack, proving she was a threat? Would she retreat, proving she was prey? Would she try to intimidate them, proving she was a fool? But she just asked them to move, Shimmer interjected. Exactly. Thrak's amber eyes gleamed with something that might have been respect. She treated them not as obstacles, but as thinking beings capable of choice. She acknowledged their strength without fearing it. She requested cooperation without demanding submission. In doing so, she challenged their assumptions about what makes someone worthy of respect. Pharrell's arms slowly uncrossed. And they recognized that? Instinctively. The cubs responded to what every warrior respects. Confidence without arrogance, strength without aggression, respect without subservience. She moved them not by force, but by presenting a more sophisticated form of dominance, one that didn't require them to lose face by yielding. Remarkable, Pharrell whispered. Thrak's ridges rippled again. Humans call it politeness. We have no direct translation in our language. But after watching Sergeant Dax, I begin to understand why humanity has been so successful in the coalition. They somehow make cooperation feel like victory. Below, Dax had exited the training arena and was headed toward the briefing room, her mission report already being prepared. Behind her in that corridor, 6 predator cubs lay in formation, their amber eyes tracking her departure. And if a Krath cub could experience something like admiration, these 6 were feeling it now. In the observation deck, Vrel pulled up his datapad and began making notes. The training protocols would need revision. If a human could teach predator cubs to move with politeness, perhaps there were other impossibilities worth exploring. Commander Thrak watched the human disappear around a corner and rumbled softly to himself. Pardon me, he repeated in standard, testing the words. Such a simple phrase. Such a profound impact. Perhaps that was humanity's real strength, the ability to find power in gentleness, to make courtesy feel like conquest, to turn a simple pardon me into a display of dominance that even apex predators would respect. After all, it took true confidence to ask rather than demand, to wait rather than fight, to smile in the face of claws and fangs and death. And as every species in the coalition was slowly learning, humans had confidence in abundance. Sergeant Lyra Dax didn't need to fight the predators. She simply needed to remind them that there were more important things than blocking doors, like recognizing when you've met someone worth moving for.